and that taught me I like software a whole lot more than doing pure science. So that has taken me down this track where I am a software engineer at Unidata. I'm our lead Python developer. John here is our other Python developer. Want to give him your background?
Sure. So I did an undergraduate in meteorology and geophysics at University of Oklahoma as well. And then I actually got a PhD doing earthquake physics at Penn State. So I went to the solid earth sciences for a while and just recently joined Unidata, working on Metpy, Siphon, and some of the other Python projects, along with a smattering of other things that we do. But I think it'd be great if we could quickly go around and get you to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're from, and maybe something that you're hoping to get out of the workshop. So let's go ahead and start here.
My name is Minhu. I'm working here as a researcher. I'm working on aerosol and cloud controller. Yeah, I'm not a programmer, so yeah.
My name is Michael Morgan. I'm a professor here in the department, and I'm interested in my research and looks at uses models and looks at issues related to predictability and prediction. I'm just interested in learning how to more effectively use Python to do my research.
Hi, I'm Kevin Tyler. I'm from the Atmospheric and Environmental Sciences Department at University of Albany, and I'm the system administrator there. So I'm otherwise known as the Pete Pope Grant of Albany. And I know enough Python to be dangerous, but I want to be a little less dangerous. And I especially want to learn Metpy and the Siphon Unidata tools.
I'm Andrew Baird. I just graduated from UW-AOS less than a month ago, and I just want to get a little bit more knowledge of how to use Python in sciences.
I'm Pedro from China. I'm a sophomore just learning about computer, and I stay here for some.
My name is Kyle Hasley. I graduated from UW-Madison last year with a degree in AOS. I'm here because next week, actually on Wednesday, I'm flying out, and next week I'm starting a job where I am nearly certain I will be using Python, and I figured this would be a really great way to add to my existing knowledge of Python.
I work here at Sims, and mostly right now we're going to check out things and TypeScript mostly, but I use Python as well.
And I'm Mark. I work here at Sims too, mostly with modeling and data simulation. And I figured out that you cannot outrun Python. So
my name is Aaron Morelli. I'm a staff researcher here. I do a lot of work with satellite data and radiative transfer. So I'm mostly looking to learn more about Metpy, I guess, maybe how to contribute to it. Lee Krantz, I work at SSCC Sims down on the second floor, and I work with satellite data, doing research, mainly on the convective side of things. And I just started using Python about a year and a half ago, so I went through the development school.
Kevin Daggett. I work at in the Mentitis X group in the sixth floor. I've done a smattering of Python over the years, just trying to get a little more proficient.
My name is Tim Bodine. I worked at Cargill in Minneapolis for 37 years, retired last summer. I was there as an agricultural economist. I took a half-time job with the Nature Conservancy, looking after the staff within agricultural development issues. I also went back to school at the University of Minnesota, half-time doing math and computer science. I did some Python stuff last semester in a machine learning course, most difficult course I ever had.
Hi, my name is Will. I graduated from Texas A&M University. I work here on satellite retrieval of cloud properties and use of cloud ontology. Mostly use cultural idea. We do have a software involvement with pricing.
I'm Nick. I'm a grad student at Iowa State. I started using Python in the past year and hoping to just learn more applications every day and apply to my research.
I'm Brett Hoover. I'm a research scientist at Sims. Only used a little bit of Python. I'd like to get more familiar with it for visualization for work and move a lot of my MATLAB stuff into Python.
I'm Josh. I'm a grad student here at AOS. I use Python in my research, so I'm just trying to enhance my skills in Python.
My name's Bob. I work here down on the 6th floor in the Architis users group. We have a lot of people who use Python inside the Architis suites. So I'm just looking for something.
Jay Heinzelman, I work with Bob in Architis User Services, and we basically said exactly what I was going to do. Try to get myself more familiar with Python methods and things that our users might be using with Architis
I'm Bob. I'm a research scientist here at UW-AOS Systems. I work mainly on growth, use on satellites. We use Python once in a while, but not enough or consistent enough to really know it very well. But we also learn this with Python.
Samantha Tusshouse. I'm a researcher here. I work with satellite radar and radiometer. And I just want people to apply Python to my research. And I also want to say go Siphon.
Hi, I'm Curtis Principal. I work at SCCC. I do research. I do a little bit with Python, but I just want to get a little bit more proficient with it, figure out some shortcuts.
Andy Karofsky from UW-Milwaukee, and I'm basically just looking to familiarize myself more with. My name is Kevin, and I'm also from UW-Milwaukee, and I'm hoping to learn that visualization.
Okay.
I'm Tim Pilkey, and I too am from UW-Milwaukee. Just kind of hoping to familiarize myself with Python a little bit more, maybe apply to some of my research. Right now I'm just kind of strictly doing MATLAB type stuff, so nice to get another language my belt builders.
My name is Craig. I'm a graduate student here at UW, and I just kind of learned Python within the last semester or so, so just here to kind of broaden my toolbox with Python.
And then I'm a recent graduate from the AOS program here at UW-Madison, and I've had some experience with Python. I'm just
I'm Corey. I'm from UW-Milwaukee as well, and I'm just trying to familiarize myself with Python.
Okay. Out of curiosity, we were here last June. How many of you took one of those workshop sessions last June? Okay. So some repeats, but this will look familiar from last year, but there will still be some new stuff or new takes on the stuff we did last year. So you'll still get something, or at least, slowly remember what happened last June, because I'm sure, you went back and you just used it immediately and just it all sank in perfectly because you had such great instruction.
Used it immediately, but thank you for
No.
So before Ryan gets going, there are two items. One, everybody should have a red and green sticky note. Does anybody not have red and green sticky notes? Okay, so the idea is when we're doing exercises, once you're done, everything's going great, put up the green sticky note. If at any point during, so Ryan's talking, you're following along, you get stuck, you're stuck during an exercise, put up the red sticky note on the back of your monitor. Whoever's not teaching is going to come around and help you.
Yeah,
it's just wherever you're stuck.
You dropped off, if you could reconnect.
Sure. So we just stick it on the back like that is how you go about that.
The other thing is up here we've got etherpad.wikimedia.org/p/UW workshop. If you go to that, this is it's a big text document sort of where it color codes whoever's typing. So it's a set of joint notes. So if you have a question, you can type in there and one of us will be watching. We'll put links in there that you can go to instead of having to type in a full URL that we write up on the board.
Perfect.
And you can take kind of group notes. This will persist for a little while after the workshop. When you do join, I see several people joining right now. If you click the little person icon in the upper right corner, you can type your name and you can select a nice color if you'd like. That way we don't have a bunch of unnamed. Yeah, so we're getting quite a few people in there now. Any other admin?
All the links are in there.
The workshop and the GitHub are in there.
Okay. Any questions before we get going?
Where's the Google Doc? How do I access that? Is that right on the?
Which the Etherpad?
Oh, it's the Etherpad?
Yep.
Okay.
Wi-Fi.
Okay, I'll just work with you.
Good job.
Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. So to start our Python workshop, the first thing we're going to do is talk about Git, which is not really a Python tool, but we feel like it's an important place to start when we're doing software tools. So how many of you have not used a version control system before? Don't be shy. Okay. All right. So I obviously have a very software-heavy audience here, but for those of you not familiar, a version control system is a way to manage changes to your source code. And it doesn't have to be source code. It can be text files. It can even be binary files if you really want to, but it's not great at that. But version control is a way to systematically track your changes to a file. So as opposed to going in and having a file and you get it just the way you like it, and you come back 6 months later and say, oh, I like this one, but before I go make changes, we'll copy this to .back and make some changes, and then come back later. Oh, I need to make some more. Well, that one works, and I have back. I don't want to lose any of those. We'll make .back too. Or .works, or .works for me. You go in and try and fix some bugs, and it's like, okay, let's keep the working copy original, and now with that. And then you have a directory full of 6 files that at best you've got timestamps to tell you when these things were edited. Maybe you were really detail-oriented and put the date stamp maybe in the name of the file. Version control is a way to do that systematically and say, commit these changes, I like them, and then it just has one copy of the file sitting there. You can go back through history, see what changes you've made in the past, and it's just a much more rationalized way of doing this and more reproducible, and then you don't end up with a directory full of 6 files or running something on your production machine that says .old.new.1.2. That's a true story. We have a script like that actually, that's what it's called, is running, doing actual production stuff. So version control is a way to do this systematically. Git is a specific version control system that came out of the Linux kernel project. And so that's what Linux kernel developers use to track the source code that controls all the low-level stuff in Linux. And so it scales for their workflow of thousands of developers around the world, but it's not heavyweight and it's really easy to set up on your computer. And so it's kind of taken off and powers things like GitHub for collaborative development. It's definitely known for having a bit of a learning curve, and so we'll walk through that slowly today and just get you guys more familiar with it. We use it to track all the workshop materials. We use it to track all the source code we do with Metpy and Siphon. It's a nice foundational tool for doing scientific software development so that you can go back and say, 6 months ago, did I make any changes to my code? No. Okay. The reason I'm getting results different now is because something else changed on my computer. My code has not changed. And that was a really important lesson I learned early on in grad school was, oh, this is great. I don't have to spend 3 weeks trying to figure out why are my results changing. Because I can say, my code hasn't changed. I don't know what else changed, maybe the math libraries, but it's not my code. My research code is the same as I left it. So with that, let's start running Git. So what you want to do is open up a terminal window on Linux computers. It's running CentOS, Pete?
They are, yes.
Okay.
You just dropped off again. So.
What is the guest Wi-Fi?
Guest Wi-Fi, you have to log in with a username and a password.
Okay. UW-net?
Yep.
Okay.
Put your email and password in the sheet.
I'm guessing it's Edgy Room.
I just did the create a guest account and made it.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is
guest
down there.
Account is different than Edgy Room, but.
Right. No. I was on Edgy Room and it keeps dropping. All right. Well, that worked. Hopefully it'll stay working. All right.
Just shot you another invite.
Idle.
Oh, you still got the same one?
Yep.
Okay.
one more time. Good?
Other than we just left, yeah, there we go.
Okay. All right, so everyone managed to get a terminal window open on their Linux system or whatever system you're on. If not, we can.
What did you recommend for a Windows?
Okay, we need to get window installed. So if we go back to the main page, so what one did you link, John?
I linked to the Madison Workshop page.
Okay, so unfortunately we need to go.
Oh, good.
If you go to the Madison Workshop page to click this Unidata Python training workshop, getting started has installation instructions. That's a Python. Where's the Git? There we go. Okay, so it says Python, but it also has installing Git. And so in there, desktop.github.com is where you want to go for Windows systems. That has an install of Git for Windows. If you're on Linux, you should already be good. If you're on Mac, we'll get there in a second, because what I want you to do, if you know you know how to get installed, we'll help you walk through that right now. But on the non-Windows systems, you should type git space -- version and put up your green stickies if that works for you. If it doesn't, we're coming around and we'll get you all set up.
And I'm putting the Windows link in the
Is
Etherpad.
2.1 fine?
Yeah, don't worry about the same version that I have, as long as you get something that doesn't say command not found. How many other Windows users do we have in here? Don't mind helping you guys out. Just sometimes Windows computers can be more challenging, so I don't know how many.
You use backports? So, yeah, you can do like a full, yeah, you can do like a full self.
And then if you just do the
Yeah, I just loaded mine. This is probably about as new as can be.
Install that, and then what you're going to, it'll give you a new link page. It's terminal. Start programming, and that will give you a console. Is it actually Git bash? I can't remember.
That was smoother than last.
Well, let's.
Okay. I shouldn't say that.
Exactly.
We kind of broke something last year.
I remember. We will never forget.
I think we've long waited the day when GitHub is down when we try to do this or something.
Murphy's Law.
Mm-hmm.
Murphy's Law of Linux.
going to plug in real quick and show Windows. It's
Okay.
fine that we don't need to record it though.
It's all right, you dropped off again anyways. I might have to get you on the wire.
So if you're on a Windows machine, you'll get this, I thought it's a Git bash, but it says Git shell icon. It's tiny on here, I know, but if you open that, you'll get the equivalent of a bash terminal. You should be able to do git space dash dash version successfully.
This shouldn't take a long time to install, should it? It's not that heavy of a software. So.
No, it shouldn't take very long.
So you might consider going to the bottom of that page.
No.
GitHub is releasing a new beta version of GitHub Desktop. Go to the one that says not ready for beta and install the old one. The new one's this nice JavaScript. It's great.
I'll try to get him back on real quick.
Okay. Yeah, maybe at the break, I'll see if I'll kick you guys unaware. That might help.
Seriously?
I'll see if I can get you guys unaware during the break. You have a internet port on there?
Yeah. All right. I got a dongle.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a better recording of the Git intro from our workshop last fall. So I just need to punt for now. You're going. You're still going.
Don't forget you're sharing your screen though. A lovely picture of you if I could.
Oh well, that's
It's not bad. It's
you're too kind.
Not what's intended. There we go.
All right. Still installing. Are we having luck?
using Git for our website. It's using something called Jekyll, which is what you do. And we store the site on a GitHub site, and our main office staff hits it through the web browser to edit stuff. Most of the files are markdown files. And then when we make a change, GitHub shoots a packet to our web server saying, hey, I changed, rebuild it. Pulls it in, rebuilds it, and publishes it. All stuff.
In your front office, it's pretty easy for them to.
It's true because it's pretty much just, I mean, she had been using Dreamweaver, and she still does Dreamweaver for some of the texts. This is what it ends up looking like, and that's all just HTML.
Yep.
It's actually being hosted on the student site right now. Eventually to a campus. This is all the layout stuff, which you just use the layout stuff. I've only done all the other stuff. So my stuff looks like this. This is everything that looks like what they do different.
So was it easy for you to kind of collect this steps? Did you kind of do this from scratch? Like, round up?
We'll do this for a fair amount of time programming out the layout.
Otherwise,
My front office person did a lot of times porting content over from the current website. I was doing a lot of my web pages. It just was cut. I think you dropped off again. But we can wait until you're ready to go if you want.
I don't understand why it keeps dropping off.
No, I don't either. That's really bizarre.
Why are we there? Still working? Okay.
So do you, are you?
So the way Git works is we run like we did git -- version. So Git's kind of your master command here, and then you give it subcommands. So for instance, we want to configure Git is our first step here to set it up for our use. We want to tell it things like when we'll start making commits and track our history, we want to say who made what change. And so to do that, we put in our name and our email address. And then we also will set up something else here in a second. But so to do all that, we say git space config. And then another space, I say -- global, oops, -- global, space -- add, space user dot email, and then I'll put in my email address. And I hit return, and it doesn't give me an error, so that means it took. So what that's doing is saying globally, so for all uses, whenever I use Git with my account on this computer, I want Git to use that email address when I make commits. And the --add is for adding a new configuration option. Similarly, I want to give it my name, so I say git space config space -- global space -- add user.name, and then you need quotes and put your name there.
We're talking to a server, not
All locally.
all local.
Yep. It's one of the nice things about Git versus something if you've ever used Subversion, for instance, or CVS, where you have to do a lot of work to set up this separate server just to get started. Git out of the box you can work with locally and never talk to another computer and still get the benefits of just tracking your own changes. For anything more than a simple script, I'll use Git. For anything that I want to have a history of what I've done to it, I don't want it to break accidentally. I want to be able to go back to my working version. Git's quick to set up once you've done it. And so, for instance, for these config flags, I set them once, and the only time I run them since is when I'm doing a workshop. Otherwise, I have my .git config file somewhere in my system. That's how it stores all these options, and I never have to touch it again. The last thing we're going to do to configure things after we've set our name and email address is git space config -- global -- add color.ui space auto. So by default, you'll get black and white output, but Git has the bells and whistles of being able to do colorized output at the terminal, and that makes things a little bit easier for your eyes to look across and understand what's going on. So we'll tell it, go ahead and use color when displaying some of the output. If we want to see what configure options we've set, you can do git space config space -- list. And then we see user.email, user.name, and color.ui. And then by default on OS 10, Git also sets that config flag for handling passwords and whatnot. So,
Ryan, I just, for OS X, I did not see the credential helper in mine.
Really? That's surprising because every time I nuke my config and start it up again, it does that. Weird.
What version are you on?
This is 2.11.
Same version. Interesting.
Or 2.13, sorry. This is like the brand new machine, Mac ports.
Oh. Okay, I'm using the XTools one, so that might be Apple's contribution to their Git.
I see.
So, John.
Yeah, that's the same thing. I didn't get that credential.
Don't worry about the credentials. If you don't see that, all you need to see are these last three, the ones that we actually set. Don't worry about the credentials thing. So,
what if I see other things like alias.s push or alias.l? I'm seeing what.
Probably it's configuration from previously using Git would be my guess.
Yeah, okay.
Or you borrowed somebody else's config file or something else.
And how do you remove something that you put something in incorrectly?
So if you want help on a command, git config -h. And so what we're looking for is, I think your best option, actually, if you can unset.
Okay.
So that's probably your best bet there to get rid of the configuration option. All right, so we set up Git. Now the next thing to do is create a repository. What's a repository? All that is a directory and its file contents. And then Git also stores the history of the contents of that directory and any subdirectories within that. We call that a repository. It's just your contents that you're trying to track and the internal Git stuff that it needs to track the history. So to set that up, we're going to make a new directory. So mkdir space, I'm going to call the directory project code. You are welcome to use whatever name you want. And we just, oop. Okay. Don't do what I'm about to do. All right. mkdir project underscore code. So make a new empty directory. Then we're going to change into that directory. So cd space project underscore code, or whatever you called it. And then to set up Git for this directory, one command, git space init. And with that, we're done. We're ready to start rocking and rolling with Git in that directory. There we go. Yep. I know people who have aliased get to Git just because they type that all the time. I'm not teaching a workshop. You should rely on tab completion and just let it handle it. All right, so that's how we create a new repository. Make a directory, get in it. All done. Something to note: if we do an ls, it's an empty directory, nothing shown. But if we do an ls-al, that won't work on Windows. You'd have to do a dir, and I don't know what the flags are to list everything. But I just want to point out, if we list everything, we see this .git directory. That's where Git stores all of its information. I point this out to you to only say, if you delete this directory, your Git history is gone. All of the Git stuff is gone. So don't do that if you would like to keep your repository. Otherwise, you're just going to have a directory of files. So now that we've made a new repository, one of the commands we're going to do a lot, is that actually better? Yeah, it's kind of what where did that go? There it is. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. And luckily, the rest is still white. So the command we're going to come to a lot is for checking the status of a repository. So we can do git space status. What that does is gives us the current information about the current status of the repository. Any files that are changed, any files that it's not tracking, where we are in the world, history. Right now we see we're at the initial commit. We actually haven't given it anything to track. It's an empty repository ready to go. So next step, of course, is to give it something to track. So to do that, we need to go create a file. So for Mac, use whatever text editor you are comfortable with. If you don't have one, it's Nano installed on Mac. So I'm going to edit a file called calc.py. I'm going to use Nano. You are welcome to use whatever text editor you are comfortable with. VI, Notepad on Windows. I don't know of a good way to do it from the command line, so you need to probably open Notepad and make sure you save it to that project code directory, which will be under Documents GitHub. So to go back so you guys can see what I did, I just said I did on Mac nano calc.py. That should probably also work on the Linux systems.
May work, if not gedit probably is on there.
Yep. The important part is we get a text file that we can put some things into.
I got a quick question about that.
Sure.
I've run into problems before because Python takes tabbing really seriously.
It does.
So I've tried to use like Emacs and try to anticipate what my tabbing is and screw it in. So are there particular editors that you choose to avoid or choose to embrace?
No, it's be careful with your editor settings. Okay. I know Emacs has, I don't know what the setting is, but it definitely has a setting because we have at least one someone who really likes Emacs on doing Python stuff at Unidata who uses it. So it's definitely possible to do it. I couldn't tell you offhand what it is. And I couldn't tell you what it is in Vim either, even though I have it set somewhere. But it's go figure out what that setting is, Google around, set it, and hold on to that file for dear life. But yeah, it is.
One of the best practices is use soft tabs to replace all tabs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That would also be my recommendation: is don't use tabs.
Yeah.
Use spaces.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to edit a file, calc.py. I'm just going to put in some content here, some code. We're going to make a function to convert temperatures. So I'm going to say def to Fahrenheit. We'll take Celsius as an argument. Now, it's not critical that we get every last byte here correct because we're not actually running this. This is just some sample code. We really just need content put in here, but it seems best in a Python workshop to actually make things use Python. So if you use a nano, Control O to write that out, and then Control X to exit. I should do this actually. So if I do an ls, so I just ran bash here to get rid of my custom settings so we get something that looks more like what you guys have. So I have this file, calc.py. If I do a git status, we still see this initial commit message, but now we say, okay, Git's realized you have untracked files in this directory. So there's a file in this directory that I know nothing about. Would you like me to do something with it? And then hopefully it says, use git add file to include what will be committed. So doing commits in Git, what a commit means is I have changes I've made to my project. I would like you to hold on to them for all eternity, Git, and make sure I don't lose them. So we're going to commit to holding on to these changes. And so to do this, Git has a two-stage process. You kind of you've got a box for a commit, and it starts out empty. And then you say, I'm going to take this, I'm going to put this in the box. And maybe I want this, so I'm going to put this in the box. And you keep adding things to this box. And then when you commit, you close up the box and tape it shut. You can still get to what's in there, but once you get the idea that we kind of are assembling this commit, and then when we're ready, then we stamp it and we're done. So to put things in the box, we say git add, and I say calc.py because I want to add the changes I've made in that file to the commit. Now if I do git status again, now it no longer says untracked file, it says changes to be committed, and it gives me a list of the files that will be in the next commit I make. And we notice here's where that color comes in, where it was a red before for untracked files, now it's green for things that are about to be committed. Okay, so I've made some changes to my code. I want to hold on to them. Everything looks good. So now I make a commit. I say git space commit. And we use -m to give it a message. So whenever you make a commit, you kind of put a message in this history to let yourself know what was the reason I did this. Right now, it seems obvious. 6 months from now, it will not be obvious to you. So take my advice, leave yourself good messages so that you can go back and say, what went on here? Why on earth would I change this? Oh, there was some obscure bug. Oh, I had a bad day, whatever. So I'm going to say add calculations file. I hit enter. And then Git has given us some information here. Most importantly, it did not give us an error. So everything worked. And now if you run git status again, now we get a clean status here. It just says, on branch master, nothing to commit, working tree clean, which is Git's long-winded way of saying there are no changes here. Everything, I am aware of all the contents in this directory. So go through this process again. Now that we have a file, we're already tracking this file. We've got some code in there. Let's add some more code to it. So open it back up. So I'm going to do nano space calc.py again. I'm going to add another function to Celsius from Fahrenheit. Return Fahrenheit master 2. Let's just stop this one. This goes to 1015. Like, yeah. We'll show it. We'll get there. Okay, so write it out, quit out. Now if we do git status again, now it's not talking about untracked files. Now it says, hey, you've modified calc.py. What do you want me to do with that? It says change, it puts it under changes not staged for commit. So we can say use git add file to update what will be committed. So put the stuff in the box. It also gives us this command to say, if you want to get rid of what changes you've made, here's how to do it. If you want to see what's changed, maybe you came back after a week away and you're suddenly, okay, why are things changed in my project? What was I working on? Git space diff. That will give you the differences from what your last commit was. If you're not familiar with Unix style, these diffs, as we call them, what this is saying is we're comparing these two files called calc.py. It gives pluses next to the lines it's adding, minuses next to the lines it's deleting in this first row. So we see plus, add this line, def to Celsius, plus add return Fahrenheit, and plus blank line. If we had deleted some code or changed the code, we see a combination of pluses and minuses here. That's how we look at, this is what we've changed. So we came back and said, oh, this is good stuff. I want to hold on to that. Let me go ahead and make a commit with those changes. So once again, git space add space calc.py. So once again, git status. Okay. Now we see it listed under changes to be committed.
Did you need to add it again? It was already being tracked, right?
So add is for adding any changes to what's going to be committed. So add is not just about adding new files, but it's about adding things to the box that's going to be your next commit.
So if you just did a git commit without doing the add, would you?
Oop. I already. Okay. I can fix this. There we go. So if you did not have it added. So if we do it without adding anything and do a git commit, then it doesn't do anything. So you have to add and then commit. There is a -a flag to commit, which says add all the changes I've made. So you can go that route. If that works for you, great. I have programmer OCD, so things must be nicely organized and, you know. But the most important thing is using version control rather than using it, you know, very particularly.
So when I look in that directory, there's just the calc.py
Yep.
file. Is the prior generation there somewhere?
Yep, in that .git directory. I don't know on Windows how it looks hidden files, but that's where it's hiding.
Probably not all of it though, right? Just the changes.
It has a complex set of procedures for storing, yeah, for
But you
doing
can get-
diffs and then compressing them together. And
But you can get at the.
you can get every last version of the file you've committed, which is one benefit of doing fine-grained commits is you can roll back through history. And you know, when you've ever broken something within 1,500 line code change, you hate yourself. And then, you know, when you've gone back and said, oh, I don't want to do that again, let me commit every 10 line logical change here. Then it makes it a lot easier to go back and say, where did I break things? So these are the kind of things you get by going to version control rather than having 3 copies of file sitting around. It's rolling back through history to figure out what worked. And the other thing with Git is you can roll back to, it's not individual files you're rolling back, but it's the contents of the directory. So you can track the 3 files as they were working together 6 revisions ago and go back. And so see how things, you know, this collection of code worked. I don't know which file is breaking things, but you can roll back to the collection of code that's working.
And I just looked, and for example, for Metpy, we can go back about 1,400 revision steps. And that's a relatively new project, so a relatively small set of Git commits. So lots of commits are good.
Yep. All right, so let me go back. Since I undid it, I need to add calc.py. And what I wanted to say is after you've added it, if you do the git diff, we see there's no changes. So diff is only looking at things you haven't set up to be committed. If you want to see the difference from what you're about to commit, you need to add a flag to git diff. So it's git diff space -- staged. So now I want to see what are the differences in what I've staged, what I'm about to commit. And now if we look, now we see those changes that are about to be committed. And now once more, git commit space -m, add new calculation, and then git status.
How do you end up using add? Because like add, you just keep adding without committing. You don't get those steps once you commit.
Correct.
So when do you decide your breakpoint?
Anytime I get to a point where I've got something working that I'd be sad if it broke and I'd have to go back and figure out how to get it working again. Or if, you know, since I'm pushing things to a remote server, anytime I get a chunk of work that I'd be sad if my laptop caught fire and I'd have to reproduce again. I mean, that's one of the nicest things is just commit and get it off my computer so that, you know, this thing could catch fire and I'm not losing any important code. That's a really freeing position to be in.
I guess maybe the question was, I don't think you would ever add and then continue editing stuff and just leave it.
No, probably not. Usually it's git add, but it might be git add this file, git add that file, then commit. Even though I've edited 6 files, I'm going to add these 2, make a commit, because that's one logical chunk.
That makes it much harder to make messages.
A what?
It makes it much more difficult to make messages, in my opinion.
If you have like 6 files, yes. But you might edit 2 files that are all part of the same, I need to add this feature. You've implemented the function in this file, you're calling it in this place in this file. And you add those 2, and then commit them. And then you go add the other 4 files that are all still one logical. Yes, if you have to write a book in your commit message, you might think about chopping down your commit because there's too much going on. And again, part of it also is being able to go back and say, okay, I need to track down where things broke in here. And there are tools within Git to do all sorts of things like that. Of saying, it'll literally help you search through your history and say, somewhere in these 500 commits, things broke. Help me track down doing just a search of the history where things broke. And you say, okay, this one's good, this one's bad. And it'll find, okay, check here. Okay, this one's bad. It'll keep helping you search. So it's got a lot of capabilities like that when you really start digging into Git further. But that's beyond the scope of what we're doing here today. Any other Git questions before I turn you guys loose on making a new file with some content? It can be Python code. It can be a recipe for cookies. I don't care. Just make a text file, a new one, not calc.py. Make a new text file and go through the process of adding it to your Git repository. Green sticky is down, and then when you are done doing that, please put your green sticky back up. Ah, thank you, GitHub.
Either version.
We lost some of install this time. Just like OU, I'm just going through history and ignoring things. And call it.
We need to. I'm going to open an issue, but we need to send out install instructions before workshop. Make sure you get this terminal up. Dash version works.
Do we have, I know we have notebook screen casting like thing. Do we have any of that for Git?
I can make one. It'll take all of it. Then I have a Windows box.
Well, then, yes. Just trying to explain. We need to look at this Git shell. It's not. It's conducive.
The Git shell might live under a menu in the new Git app.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to open an issue.
We want to try and put you on a wire, then we're going to access Jasper. You just gotta give your MAC address.
Okay.
The copy of my CD. We can do that now or during the break either.
I don't know.
Yeah, you probably have to.
I'm probably going to use mine because yours is set up weird compared to mine. But maybe I'm fall off Wi-Fi. Like I go between things like this and I expose like this.
And mine doesn't?
No.
Really? Because
can you do 3 fingers fiber to go like up to do expose?
no, it's 4.
Oh. What kind of animal sense you have 4?
I forget why. There was a reason I was using 3 for something. What kind of 3-toed sloth said to get 3?
Person that doesn't want to use an extra finger.
Opposable thumbs.
All right. We can do this all. Next time I'll bring my pedals. Which I have on my machine downstairs.
Oh, I know. All right, green, 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 green. That's good. Green.
I suppose I should just take a picture of that. It'd be easier.
It's probably the best thing about modern phones is just
take a picture.
Let me take a picture of that so I
I
can
got like so many screenshots of addresses and stuff on my.
Especially since you can't just copy and paste them into where you're going. You're gonna have to.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
I didn't have you on there from last year today. Do you have an IP address for me already?
Yeah.
Do you really? All right. No, that's not.
1103 is not.
No, you'd be on 144.92.
All right. Well.
Should be.
Or do you have network connection? Can you ping
Well, I still have Wi-Fi, and I'm not turning that off right now.
Yeah, no, I'll leave that on for now.
I'm not doing anything network related, but all right. I need All right, just a couple more minutes and then we'll move on. First issue of the day. First issue of the day.
Your favorite editor. So, oh, I see. Yeah. So you do like this one all.
Give it a go on that network settings once and either refresh or see if you get it.
Come on.
Wonder if it needs a reset or
Why don't you be able to just right click and turn it off? I thought.
They don't have you hardwired on something on there, do they?
No, think so. No, because I don't use this at work.
Huh.
What's it different?
Because it shouldn't be. You shouldn't be getting the 190.
All right. Well.
Does control plane have something weird going on?
Nope.
We can tweak that during the break.
Yep. I'll get there in a break. I'll just unplug it. All right. Anybody gonna complain if I move on? I see no no's or no yeses. All right. So I keep talking about the history of commits being one of the key points of using Git and tracking your code. So let's start looking at how we can access the history using Git commands. So your doorway to this is the log command. So we can do git space log. And so what we see here is we get this listing of the changes I've made to the repository. So I have 2 commits. You guys should have a third from adding your new file. And so what we see here is we have this commit and then this big long gobbledygook of numbers and letters. That's actually just a set of hexadecimal digits. It's what we call the hash of the commit, and you can just think of that as a unique ID for that commit, for that change or set of changes. Then we also see the author. So we see my name and email address. So that goes back to the initial setup of Git. We said user.email and user.name. We see the date and time of the commit, and then we see the log message we left ourselves. If we just want to see the most recent one, we can say git log space -1, and that'll just give us the most recent one commit. Or we can get a shorter listing and do git log -- one line, which based on the name gives us one line per commit. And so that looks like this, where we get a shorter version of the hash, the ID, and then it just shows us the log message.
You can, unless you're creative with the message that you use when you commit, when these, what do you call them, the hash of the commit, is it very useful in knowing what file I committed?
No. So you're not a plant, I promise. Git log -- stat shows us the stats of the commit. And that's where you can see whose or what files were changed, how many lines were added or subtracted, and then a total summary at the bottom. In that commit, how many files were changed, how many lines inserted, how many lines deleted. It's usually a good idea to give your guys.
Sorry, the command again was git.
Oh, because it cleared it off. Sure. Git log -- stat.
But you do want to give yourself a pretty nice commit message. You know, a couple sentences at the minimum, and no more than a paragraph at the maximum.
Well, and actually the common convention is you give a short first line. And so if I just do git commit, it'll bring me up an editor, and you can do one line, a blank, and then a whole paragraph if you really need to go through some more explanation. Or you can give multiple -m's to git commit to have multiple paragraphs. The idea being, when we did the git one line, you see this short thing? So if you do give yourself a first, a quick, 5, 6 letter description, here's what I did. Add this feature, fix this bug. And then you can have another paragraph says, I had to change this, this part was kind of confusing and it didn't make sense. It was hiding here. This network bit setting doesn't work on Mac, something like that, so that, you also, when you come back to it a year from now and say, why is this weird if statement here? It'd be so much cleaner if we just did this. Then you have the log to fall back on and say, oh, that's why. That way you don't ping pong between learning something, fixing it, going back and breaking it, relearning the fix, going back and breaking it. You have the history of the file to fall back on. So if we want to see the actual, so here we can see the stats and see what, what files were changed. But we want to see, say we want to see what were the lines that changed in a particular commit. So here we can say git show, and we can give it this big long hash 268 C5F89 5E7 CE 247. All right, I'm going to stop there because you don't actually have to give it every last digit. You can give it enough to be unique. So there I gave it, I'm going to say about 15. You just need to give it enough to be unique. And you notice when we did the git, the one line, and only gave us like 7. That's enough to do it. So we can just say git show 268 C5F, and it can pull it out. And so we see, that commit was the add calculations file, and so we see the changes there. It added that first function. So you can type out the full hash, or usually copy and paste is probably how you'd really end up doing that. But if you're working at, you really only need the first 5. If you've got a lot of commits, maybe you need 7 characters of the hash. And that's enough for Git to track it down. Sometimes you get away with just 2. On this repository, it probably will work with just 2. If it's ambiguous, it'll yell at you and say, you need to give me more because I can't figure out which one you're talking about. So I'm going to go back now, and we're going to work on undoing some changes. So I'm going to go in and edit calc.py again.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
So I did the git log status, and I saw 3 commits that I had.
Right, because you had from the exercise the 3 files.
So why of those 3 when I do this last command, the git show for unambiguous? I mean, I can see the first 3 characters. The first 3 characters are different for each of those 3.
Mm-hmm.
So why would it give me an error message that there's something that's ambiguous?
If you have enough commits, the first 2 characters of that hash could be the same. Is it yelling at you now?
Yeah, I use the first 3, and there's an. Yeah.
It's still complaining? Maybe there's a minimum I wasn't aware of.
I always use 5.
I thought 3 was enough. Maybe I lied.
I go beyond that.
Okay, so there might be a minimum it looks for. Okay. It doesn't take long before, at least 2 of them will probably conflict or be close enough in the first few digits. All right, so editing calc.py. I'm going to just add not really important to be exact here. I wouldn't invest too much effort in getting that exactly right. So now we've got it. I'm just going to go ahead and exit out of this. What I want to show you is if we do git status, we see it's modified. Git diff, see what's different. Oh, sorry. And when we did the git status, we saw this to discard changes. This git checkout -- file. So if we've made some changes, say we've put in some debugging code, whatnot, we're done with it. We want to get back to a clean version of the file with no changes. We can follow Git's advice there and say git checkout, say -- calc.py. Now if we do git status, we see on branch master, nothing to commit, working tree clean. So made some changes to a file, and instead of committing them, that's how we blow them away. Say, I don't need those.
Could you just show the code right here?
Can you what?
Can you show the code right here in this window?
Windows.
Oh.
On Windows, would it be
Type type space calc.py.
That's not a good thing. That's just
shell, Windows shell. There's no way with Git to show the code that I'm aware of. I think on Windows it's type. On Unix it'd be cat calc.py.
GitHub has a thing, but we're not using GitHub.
What if you want to check out an old version?
What was that?
What if you want to check out an old version? That's just the previously past previously.
So that one is. So if we do our, let me get my log here. All right, so if I want to go back to this particular commit, this 268, so I can say git checkout, and then we say give it the hash ID, so 268 C5 F8, and then say what file I want, or I could give it no files and it would check out that particular, all of the files from that one, but I'll say calc.py. Now if I do git status, what it's done is it's already moved that content in. But if I can print the content of the file, we can see I only have the one function now.
Okay. So just so it's clear to me, when you're getting the previous one, you have the 2 dashes before the name. Is that to suppress any future options or something? Is that like?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I was trying to figure out why that didn't.
You can also, in lieu of using dash dash, we can say head. That says go to the most recent commit. That's another way to spell that. Either way, by going back there, we're back to on branch master, working copy clean. So it's straightforward once you wrap your head around the syntax. You have all the commands you could ever want to really navigate through history, check out parts of files, and so on.
So the very top of the screen, the command, the git checkout 268.
Mm-hmm.
The syntax for that is to sort of check out calc.py that was in that commit, or
yes. So I want you to go find this particular commit, 268C5F8, and I want you to grab the contents of calc.py from them.
Obviously, you could have had multiple files.
Could I have multiple files? I could have given it nothing, and it would have just checked out everything from then.
So in the process of entering a number of these things, it reverted back to a prior version.
So when I said git checkout head, that rolled back to the prior version. And then when I said git checkout head calc.py, go back to my last commit, my last.
Most recent.
If you think of it as a stack of things you've done, you've kind of committed these things and made a stack of commits. Go back to the top of that stack.
And which one goes to the latest one, back to the latest?
Either git checkout head calc.py, or you can replace head with dash dash. Any more questions on the log and going back and forth here? All right. Last thing I want to cover on Git here is ignoring files. So let's say you're running some analysis code. I'm going to make a directory here that would correspond to maybe having some results. So mkdir space results. I think this worked before. I'm going to say touch a.dat, b.dat, c.dat, results / a.out, and results / b.out. So say we had some input files to some analysis code and some output files from that same code. If you're not familiar with the touch command, all that's doing is creating a bunch of empty files. Just so we have some files here in our Git repository that, in theory, these could be gigabyte data files and lots of log output that's changing on a regular basis. Things that you don't necessarily want to be committed. But we see after doing that, if I do a git status, we have all these untracked files. As a programmer, I don't want to be staring at this untracked file message till the end of time. Also, if you get accustomed to staring at that, then you'll miss the fact that you forgot to maybe commit some important file, maybe a little header file, maybe just something that slips off your radar. It could be sitting there amongst, say it's not 3, but it's 20 files you're wanting to ignore. It's easy to miss things. So what we want to do is tell Git to ignore those things. So to do that, we make a new file called .gitignore. So Git knows to look for that file. And what that file consists of is just a list of directories, file names, file patterns that tell it things it should not pay any attention to. So I'm going to say, star.dat. We want to ignore all .dat files. And then I want it to ignore everything in the results directory.
Brian, do you need to put that trailing slash?
We're gonna run an experiment. We'll find out. I'm gonna guess no, but my intuition can be wrong. So put those 2 entries in there, exit out. If we do git status, no, we didn't need a trailing slash. So now all the dat files are no longer showing up as untracked. The results directory doesn't show up as untracked. Now the git ignore file shows up as untracked, but we know how to cope with that, and that you actually do want to commit to your history so that way when you copy it around to different systems, collaborate with others, everyone has the same set of files that are being ignored, and nobody accidentally commits a 4 GB netcdf file to your repository. So once again, to get that file tracked, we do git add.gitignore, git commit -m add ignore file. And then git status. All right, back to everything clean, no changes, no untracked files. And then now it actually protects us from ourselves. So if we say git add a.out, git add results /a.out. There we go. So when we try to add a file that we've told to ignore it, it gives us the message saying, these files are ignored. You can use -f if you really want to add them, but by default, I'm going to keep you from adding those accidentally. And the last thing to go along with that, we saw when we do git status now, everything's clean. We don't see anything. If we want to see the status ignoring the ignore file, you can do git space status -- ignored. So give me the files, including the ignored files, just so I can see what all is hiding out somewhere in this repository that's being ignored that may be taking up too much space, or I'm looking for where that stupid file gets saved and I can't find it. So that's how you do that. And now we can see the files that are being ignored again.
Just a quick question. In your git ignore file, is there like a comment type character so you can separate out?
I believe it's a pound or a hash.
You have something that says that --ignore is not an unknown option.
Okay, apparently that's a newer Git feature would be my guess then.
Okay.
Although, what CentOS? 6?
Yes, CentOS 6.
I guess that's old enough.
I've got it too, but I'm a really old version of Git. So.
Okay.
Yeah, 1.7.
I'm surprised that it's not on there, but at the same time, I'm not surprised. So one day when you get to move to CentOS 7, you'll have the beauties that is status -- ignored.
Hopefully that'll be later this summer. I didn't want to try it before this and have things not ready.
Appreciated. Well, it's not that it's so much not ready. I don't know if Cave runs on 7.
I think it, well, we're going to be running the newest version of Cave, 17.1 is on these.
Okay. All right. That's pretty much what I'm trying to get through on Git. Are there any questions relating to that? Okay. I think it's time for a break, but before we go to break, we need to clone the repo, right, John?
Is that going to take?
We'll do it later.
Conda?
We don't need the repo for that.
The environment file?
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get this started before we go to break, and that way everyone can kill the Wi-Fi at the same
I
time.
think they might be coming to take the goodies away around 10:30. I can walk in and have them wait.
There we go. Okay. So before we leave, cd space .. to go up a level, get out of our project code, the Git repository we're playing with. If you type pwd, you should see you're no longer in project code. Do git.
Command in each group.
Okay. So git clone is a way to clone a remote Git repository. And we're going to point at this at the set of Python workshop materials and go ahead and get that downloading. So git clone HTTPS.
This command is in the Etherpad if you want to type it.
The URL's there. github.com/unidata/unidata-python-workshop. And with that, break for 10. Let's take a 10-minute break. Stretch your legs, go get the last of the goodies.
I'm gonna pull your Ethernet thing and try that again. I guess you already have it pulled. So that is the right one, right?
Yeah, I think so. It was the one that was green. You're up there.
It's your earbuds. So it should be disconnected right now, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, now it just doesn't give me anything. What the hell?
That's bizarre. Did it give me that 192 thing again? Where the hell is it getting that address from?
DHCP is handing it out.
Not my DHCP. Oh, that's SSEC. I thought that was an AOS. Let me go plug in. It showed up in my list of stuff, so that's what I don't get.
That's why.
No,
Yeah, well, you know.
I'll go plug in the other one.
What the hell?
Hangout.
Oh.
I will mess up on your system.
Well, that's fine, but why the personal one, not the J-Lean and UCAR?
Maybe that's what's dropping.
God. Oh. Oh. Oh.
Because if this works and that doesn't.
This is why we can't have nice things.
We have to cut stuff out.
No, I don't want to, but I'm not against it.
Because it plus the primer both running well murders the first day schedule.
Yeah, it does. But we did all right. I mean, I hit an hour from when we got done installing Git.
Yeah.
So the solution there is to get installed before, but then we're still talking about we need more time to do the Python stuff. But I think if we're going to Lubbock, Git's going to be mandatory.
A half day or something.
Maybe. I'm going to talk to Eric and see what he wants. All right, well, let's go ahead and get you switched over. We don't need mine.
Email. I never read the whole thing, but it basically was the head of USGS's GeoMag program saying, if the supposed budget comes to pass, the USGS geomagnetics program and its 12 FTEs will be eliminated as of April.
You thought we had it bad.
We will break, long-term continuous records. All the stations will be mandatorily shut down.
All right.
Make sure this projects real quick. You can do understand that you can read some, but some Where are you off of his?
He wanted to run off his, yeah.
Okay. Does he have a Ethernet?
I thought he. No, he was wondering if it was the
The Chrome? Or
the UCAR Google Apps problem. If that was the disconnection.
Could be. We could use a different Google.
Well, so he was going to give you his personal.
Okay. We can give it a try.
Can't work any worse.
Yeah, with like down for like 30 seconds and it drop off and then it come back up.
Well, and that's what there's something to that idea. I don't know. My Wi-Fi was flaky. I didn't notice any problems with that.
Yeah.
But it very well could be.
Could be the apps. Go up or down. You guys recording these like last year?
Yeah, he's got a recording set. We've had some trouble with it, but we'll see how it goes.
So,
Send me your email or?
Yeah, midnight. So PD5 WXB. That's my personal.
Your personal
We're
one?
gonna try to see if the UCAR is what's
Okay.
messing with us.
I'll give that a shot. Fill up on their coffee before they take it away.
He's all right. Hang out.
All right.
I sent you an invite.
Okay.
See if you're coming from UW-AOS videos at gmail.com.
Nothing yet.
I usually get rid of my old environment from last year because they're not exactly the same or starting with. Just update whatever needs updating.
We can do that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, don't delete it.
Okay.
Oh, that's the half monitor resolution, and that's like full resolution. That's as much as you can.
I got this.
Got it?
No.
No?
I'm not getting anything.
So you are KV5WXB. Showed up before. Sometimes it shows up in a weird place the first time.
Oh, check spam or something.
Yeah, I don't even know if it goes into spam. It's like on the bottom right where you should be.
Where this before?
Yeah, the first time it's hard to find, and then after that it just shows up.
I mean, this is if you want to always run.
Should be.
No, I had the little hangout window open too.
Weird.
Don't see.
I see that. I can't remember what.
Maybe I wonder if it pulled up your Unidata one instead of you.
No, I didn't have this in the library.
I mean, it looks like this.
That wants the command, but not this command.
I can just email you the link to.
That works.
Copy your whole file, so.
I remember the last time I had that problem, I had to be in the Hangout app, and only then could I see.
I had it open and didn't see
Oh,
it.
nothing?
Nothing.
Not even under spam?
Nope. I think the only worst app is Holy Chat.
Buffering.
Okay, I think that's going to work, Pete.
Did you see it, Jacob?
Yeah, I should be able to.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Okay, so how do I share screen right now?
The green arrow thing. Desktop.
Do you have a screen share now, Pete?
What's that?
Do you have the screen share? Should be the workshop.
Yes, I do.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Hey.
We'll see how that works any better.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and try to get rolling again. Sorry for the delay. We're trying to record the workshop, and we're having some technical difficulties, as always, doing that. So how many people here have Conda or Anaconda, something like that, already installed on their machines? Okay, so about half and half. So some of this will be redundant, but maybe you'll pick up new tip or trick somewhere along the way. If you don't have it installed, please be sure to follow along with the screen that you cannot see. Okay. Alrighty. So the first little bit that we're going to do here for, I think we have it down for an hour, is go ahead and get Conda installed. So it's going to give you Python, and we're going to install a bunch of Python packages and get you set up for everything else we're going to do during the workshop. Then I'm going to introduce you to Jupyter Notebooks, and then we'll break for lunch and start digging in with some real Python tutorials, plotting, and that kind of thing this afternoon.
I lost your full screen. You're still connected, so there's that.
I think that was the dongle.
Okay.
There we go.
Screen sharing. Okay. So the first step is going to be in your browser. Head over to conda.io/miniconda.html, or if you just Google miniconda, you should get to this page. I think Ryan's going to put this in the Etherpad. And then go ahead and start downloading the appropriate installer for whatever your system is.
Yeah, that link is in the Etherpad.
So we're just matching, like, I do a Python dash version. I want to match what Python.
So you want to run Python 3, the 3.6. So Python 2 is quickly becoming unsupported, and so we're going to do everything in Python 3.
3.6.
Yeah.
What is the first comment? We're installed.
Oh, if you the
It's on the Etherpad. Yes. Well, there could be.
I have to.
So
it's the same one.
That'll work.
Okay.
It should be fine. You can do it either way. Miniconda, Anaconda, or very similar. It works. They're compatible. Miniconda is like a small version. So, what do you stick with? If you already have Anaconda, stick with Anaconda. Can you go to a terminal? Can you type Conda?
Actually, I work from home.
Just go with that. We'll get there.
Okay, so while that's downloading, and I know there were several questions about why my machine has 2.7, but you're saying install 3.6. So I'll explain a little bit about Python and package management with Conda itself. So Python is the interpreter that we're going to run all these commands in that we make in the programs that we're going to do over the next couple days. And it has some standard libraries, and we're going to install some additional libraries as well. In the dark days of Python, you had to do all of the version management yourself. So you had to download this package, and okay, that depends on NumPy 1.11, and so I'm going to install that. And that's all running on Python, maybe 2.7 or 2.6 or
3, whatever it was. Now Conda provides a way to encapsulate what they call Python environments. So with Conda, you can have Python 2.7, Python 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, all on one machine. And they're all separated from each other in little sandboxes. And so you can have one environment where you do development work on your research code. You can have one environment where you run some legacy code that's in Python 2.7. You can have one environment that just runs, say, SharpPy or some other tool. So it's a really nice way to separate all these things out. And so does everybody have that downloaded at least?
It popped up in an editor on his, and you had to like SH run the installer.
Yes. So there should be.
You just have to go to the command line to do it.
Yeah, so I downloaded it.
It should pull it down into a downloads folder, capital D downloads. Go in there and just type SH space and then the installer, and it should run it as a program.
SH space?
Yep. SH space and then the name of the installer. And it should go through and do the install.
So it's going to be the Miniconda 3-latest- your operating system. So you'll run this command. You can use tab completion. So type the first couple letters and hit tab, so you don't have to type the whole thing out. And then run it. Yes, you want to continue. This got somebody earlier. When we call this paging, when it's got a long document and you can scroll through it. When you're done looking at that, I don't suggest you read the whole license. It's thrilling. You can just hit Q, and that'll get you out of it. And you say yes, you agree. The default install location is fine. It's going to put it in your home directory /Miniconda3. Now it's hard to see at the bottom of the screen back there. Sorry about that. Just press enter to accept it. And things should start chugging along. Then yes, we want to append it to our bash path, so accept that default. So did everybody get that script run? If you didn't, put up your red sticky note. We want to make sure that everybody's here. On Windows, it's going to be a little different because you have to use the Anaconda prompt. Okay. So at your shell or your Anaconda prompt if you're on Windows, type conda space -- version, and you should get something like this. Yours might even be newer. And I just installed this, so it should be the same.
Green stickies if you get that working. That's kind of where we need to be to get everyone moving forward. Okay.
All right.
What's that? Okay, so open the terminal. So after you install it, you probably need to open the terminal.
Can you just source?
You can source. That will work well. If you know how to do that, do that. Otherwise, the hammer I go to is open a new terminal.
What's that?
To refresh your environment.
Source, yeah.
Yeah.
/space.bashrc.
Every now and then someone has something to bash RC that isn't idempotent.
Yeah.
So open a new terminal.
C shell number.
Let's open.
Type bash.
Oh, it should still work. I mean, I did.
Yeah, you have to. Some of the environment stuff doesn't work. Right? So source activate some environment. I was just open bash.
Just close this one out? Yeah. See, most straightforward way to make sure it all works. Now type.
Try it. If you're in trouble, you see a environment bash. On top of the C shell.
Oh.
You're running TC shell. You
try typing bash.
Just type bash and do the same thing. Yeah, we were just Kevin and I were just talking. My default shell in here for normal users is TCSH. For the workshop, I use bash because of this.
Oh, but he's on his own account. Yeah.
He's running it
okay.
from when he was a student here, right?
Yeah, I wish they would
So you
support
use
it, but,
C#.
but they just don't.
Yeah, that's smart to follow. That's what I use. Yeah.
That's what Loffersauer showed us back in, Dark Ages.
Back in the dark ages.
Then I found Z Shell and
Bash is okay. I could probably migrate over to Bash.
well, Z Shell is probably actually better and that's Bash compatible.
Yeah,
The only reason I run Bash is to clear out my settings, which I forgot to do first.
Yeah.
Then I have a clean prompt and none of my magic. Z Shell's really.
The magic is nice, but it confuses people.
I don't have to get git status. I can just look at my prompt and see.
I think I've got my Anaconda from last summer still installed.
And instead of a few people,
The workshop and see how it goes.
I might have to do an update step. That's easy enough.
I think when I create the environment, I just have Python 3.6 and pull down. It should be smart enough, right? Or do I have to update Conda first for it to find anything?
No, it shouldn't. You good?
I think we are.
Reset.
Okay, so everybody's there, right? I think we got everybody that's having problems. Yeah. Okay. Like I said, you can make environments in here that are these separate sandboxes where you have your packages and different versions of Python in. On my machine, normally I just blew away all the environments that I have right before we started this demo so that we're all on the same page. But I normally have half a dozen or a dozen at once because it's really nice to be able to create one of these, try something. So you want to try your software with the latest version of Metpy or something like that and see if anything breaks. You can try it, and then when you're done, you just blow this environment away, and it's nice and easy. So let's go ahead and make an environment. And to do that, conda is sort of like Git. We're going to have conda and then a subcommand, if you will. So we're going to say conda create -n for the name. Now let's just make an environment. We'll call it playground. You can call it whatever you want. And I'm going to specify here Python equals 3, and that'll get the most recent 3 dot whatever. But say you were running a program that needed 2, you could specify 2.7 here if you wanted, or whatever version. And press return. Last time we had a room of not quite this many people, and when everybody hit it at once, things got interesting. So it's going to say that I'm going to install these new packages, so 361-3, all that is fine. So you can press Y or return to accept that as the default. And it's going to go grab all of these new things and install them for you.
Can you show that again, the command conda create?
Mm-hmm. It is conda create. Let me. Can you guys see this bottom line at the back?
Yes.
Is that high enough? Okay.
Take Y.
All right, so did everybody get that create command run successfully? All right. So what you see, let me get rid of that, is that it tells you, okay, the environment is ready to use, and you can turn it on or activate it with source activate and then the environment name. And to deactivate, source deactivate the environment name. On Windows machines, it's just going to be activate and deactivate, no source. So we can look at the environments that we have. I'm going to go ahead and clear this. Conda env list. So env talks about environments. We want a list of them. And you see that we have group environment and then the playground environment that we just created. And running off the screen is the full path to that. You should see it on yours. And then this asterisk indicates that we are currently in the root environment. But we want to go to the playground environment because we're going to try some code and possibly break things. So source activate playground. And now you see that our prompt has been modified. It has the current environment out here in parentheses in front of the bash prompt. So we know where we are. For example, I can check the Python version in this environment, Python -- version. Sure enough, it's 3.6.1. I can also ask Conda to tell me what's in this environment by running conda list. And you see I get a handful of packages and their versions. So we don't have a whole lot installed right out of the box there. Everybody have that list? Okay. So let's say that we're in Python. So we have a Python shell here. And I try to import NumPy. Well, I'm going to get an error, right? Because we haven't installed NumPy. Once again, in the past, that is something I'd have to go download and run some kind of installer. It'd be kind of painful. Now, all I have to do is type conda install and the package name. So conda install NumPy. It's going to say, I'm going to install NumPy, and I'm going to install BLAS, libg, Fortran, and OpenBLAS as dependencies. So that's great. Press return. It gets those for us, installs them, and then returns us to a prompt. So now,
so the difference in number of things that it had to install between me and you, for example, I had only two packages and you had 4. Does it make any?
Probably whatever was on this system.
It could be a version of Linux or.
Yeah.
Well, especially because he's on Mac and you guys are on Linux.
Yeah. That is one really nice thing about Conda as well, is it takes care of all of the dependency tree for you. So if you're trying to install some package and it needs some other weird dependency that your system doesn't have, it takes care of it. It's very nice. So now if I do a conda list, I see that I have NumPy 1.12.1, which that's great. But let's say that I know, for example, that they changed the implementation of gradient in 1.12 and that it's going to break my code in some way. Because they did actually change the implementation of gradient and it did break some of my code. You can specify when you're installing NumPy equals, for example, 1.11, a version. And so it's going to downgrade and now I have 1.11. So it's very easy to switch back and forth between things. You may not know what the most recent version of a package is, and you don't want to have to go through and type conda install NumPy, conda install matplotlib. So instead, you can say conda update to go to the most recent version. You can either update NumPy, so one specific package, or if you want to update everything in your environment, if you're feeling a little adventurous on a Monday morning and want to see what breaks, you can use the --all command. And for us, only NumPy is going to be updated because we just installed this. And so now we're back on NumPy 1.12 if we look back in conda list. So there's 1.12.1 again. Likewise, you can remove packages if you do not want something in your environment anymore with the conda remove command. Now it tells us it's going to remove NumPy. We say, yeah, that's fine. And it takes care of it for us. There are a lot of conda commands. This is a small subset. We're going to look at a few more. But there are these nice conda cheat sheets up here that you can take with you. We have some in the smaller kind of cardboard form. And Pete's going to print off some more on paper that are full size as well if you want a slightly bigger one. There's also a link to a PDF of this on the workshop website. Likewise, we also have a link and a couple of hard copies of a Git cheat sheet as well, because there are a lot of commands to remember, especially if you haven't worked with this before. One more handy one that I want to show you is conda search. We can type conda search, and since NumPy has been what we've been picking on this morning, conda search NumPy will show you. Let me make the text a little smaller so we can actually get some of it to show on the screen here. It'll show you everything with NumPy in the name that's in the package repository. So NumPy docs, NumPy sugar, NumPy indexed. There's lots of things that you can look through and find to install there. All right. So we want to be using Metpy for a lot of things that we're going to do in this workshop, Metpy and Siphon. So let's do a conda search for Metpy. And you probably won't get anything, right? Yes. So the reason is Metpy is not distributed on the main blessed by Continuum Analytics that makes Anaconda channel. It's distributed through a community package manager called Conda Forge. This is the Conda Forge website. They're a great program that the most recent versions of many packages are available from. Continuum's main clients are people like financial and other markets that want a nice, stable, we know this works together set of things. This is where you always get the most up-to-date and cutting-edge stuff, and where a lot of community packages are distributed. So what we need to do is tell Conda that it can go look in Conda Forge. In fact, that it should look in Conda Forge first for any packages that you want to install. Similar to Git, we do this with a conda config command. So conda config -- add channels, and then the channel name. So conda.
You misspelled channels.
Channels, conda forge. And when you run that, you'll be returned to your prompt. I already have the Conda Forge channel installed, so it gave me a little warning. And now if you do conda search Metpy, you should get
Can you put the config command back up there?
a lot of results, all the versions of Metpy, overall the different versions of Python. You can see here's Metpy .5.1 for Python 3.5, 3.6, and 2.7. Everybody get the Conda Forge channel added and get those search results. Okay, still got a couple people working on it.
Ask a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
So all these changes we're making to this environment are going to stick around, so we source this the next time we're not going to have to repeat all this?
Exactly. In fact, the channel configuration is going to be global.
Okay.
Yeah. But the changes that we make to the Playground environment are local to Playground.
Okay.
Yeah. So go ahead and while everybody's getting to the same spot, in the playground environment, you can try to install a different package. So maybe you know matplotlib or scipy or something that you use. Go ahead and try that. Make sure you can get things installed and are comfortable doing that. All right, so I think everybody is pretty much with us now. You see, we're still in the playground environment, which is not the environment that we're going to use for the workshop. We're going to make a Unidata workshop environment that has everything that you need. But we're actually going to be using quite a few packages during the workshop. So Metpy, there's Siphon, we're going to be using netcdf, and then all of their dependencies. If we were typing conda install all these package names, we would be here for another hour. And that's nothing that anybody wants. And programmers are particularly lazy people. So they came up with a solution to this, which is the environment.yml file. This is included in the Unidata Python workshop repository that you cloned before break. And it's YAML is the name of the format of this. But you can see it has the name. Let me blow that up a little bit. Has the name of the environment, so Unidata-workshop. We're adding the Conda Forge channel, and then all of these dependencies that we're going to use. A few of them have to be installed from somewhere else. And it saves us a lot of typing. So first, let's get out of this environment that we're in. So source, deactivate. And that'll get you back to your prompt with no playground before it. So if I run a conda env list, you see that I'm in the root environment indeed. But I don't know where you are in your terminal, where you are in your file system. For example, if I run pwd to print working directory, I'm still in downloads from when we installed miniconda. What we need to do is navigate to wherever you cloned the GitHub repository, which is most likely in the home directory. So we're going to cd or change directory into wherever your repository is. Mine is in git repo /unidata-python-workshop. Yours will probably be home directory /unidata-python-workshop. Anybody having trouble getting into that directory? Finding it? Okay. So if we run NLS or dir on Windows in that directory, see that we've got several things in here, one of them being environment.yml. So our environment file. You run the conda env create command. Remember before we did this and we specified a name and what Python version, all this. We're not going to specify any of that, just conda env create, with no arguments. That will go find that environment.yml file and install everything that's in it, make that environment for you. So go ahead and do that and press return. I'm not going to do it so the command stays up there.
closing that window?
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody controls symbol.
Yeah, that's weird. There's an ENV update command that'll update, like take that file and say, okay, update my existing environment with that file.
Sorry, we're gonna activate it.
Or actually, I think you do without even activating it, because it'll look for the name.
Okay.
That will, should do it just fine. But I think that, if I'm guessing right, will nuke what you already had and make a new one. Update will take what you already have, and but in a year, probably every package is at an update, so same difference.
I'm gonna go ahead and start mine running, partially so we get a gauge on how fast the network is going here.
Conda. Python. They used to be eggs.
Eggs?
Yep. Wheel's the newer format.
Yeah, wheel is sounding much better.
Well, you have two sets of Python jokes in the language. You have the Monty Python based ones, which is what the language is named after, but you also have all sorts of snake jokes, including eggs. And then I'm guessing wheels came about because they reinvented the wheel.
Yeah. They can just source it.
You should do with a source activate.
Some kind of, you know, maybe whatever that workshop.
I'm sure he'll do that next.
I was waiting when I was doing this. Yeah, but it's kind of, maybe it's installed. Yeah, yeah, so.
It's not doing the first
It's
second.
not saying, yes, I think it's when you download.
Probably unpacking and like.
Yeah. So mine's not.
Green stickies up when you guys get to this point.
Me and Jonathan will have meet
Service. I'll go to, I was showing this to my wife this morning. And she's like, oh, and then if you click on it, I'm like, don't click on that thing.
Yeah, it's amazing how easily you can get something. I mean, these, I think most of our users, but there was one a little while ago where it was going on in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, that was the Google doc
Right.
thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It was like, check out.
Yeah, I had to think twice about it. By
Right.
the time I'm like,
Yeah.
I probably don't want to do this. That was
Yeah.
when
Right.
you get so like, don't open that.
And that was great. I think like 2 days later it was one.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody clicked the view card, so I had like 11 copies of the email.
And then because of the map mailing was, I was getting all these emails and goes, oh, I'm sorry, I'm the one who did it. It's like, no, lots of people did it.
Yeah.
I got to the point where it asked me for permissions. I'm like,
I don't think so.
Why does Google Docs even need to ask? But I mean, it was dangerous because at that point I was actually collaborating with people on Google Docs. If it had been with someone I was collaborating with, I could.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
How many people are still, the installers still going?
This is trust it still working.
Oh, there you go. All right. It's disconcerting when it doesn't print anything out.
Yeah, it was taking like.
Yeah, an install step, it was like a debug.
Part of it is he's on a shared file system over at FS.
That's
the
it.
The workshop accounts.
Sure, look, that makes all the sense in the world because there's a lot of file I/O.
Yeah, and I think there's 2 years, but you remember it was in the party. And, you know, all suddenly,
Yes. I midway Thursday afternoon, or even
at some point, I mean, maybe we can do it before then if you've got the time, but I have kind of a sort of curiosity issue about Matpy, how it does and how it just contra labels.
Badly.
Because as far as I can tell, so let's say I have a global grid, and I choose it to label contract. Do that reasonably. But then if I do a static area, then I can't remember the exact syntax, but and then have it redraw the contours, it will. There might be a couple of labels, but the only way I can get the labels to appear on every contour line is if I basically create a new array just over my selected area.
I think Z order might be out there, but the fact you're only getting some and not others is troublesome.
Yeah, and basically it seems to do exactly what IDB does in terms of contouring.
Contouring, probably yes.
Well, contour labeling.
Oh, well,
It seems to be the same
it
thing.
might be in Acorn's code. Now it's
This would be Matpy, right?
right, but they borrowed code from was it Gist?
Sure. I think we're gonna crank up again.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and crank up again, make sure we don't get you out too late for lunch. It seems like a decent number of people have used the Jupyter notebooks before, yes? Okay. I'm gonna do an introduction to Jupyter notebooks, some of the features of them. We're gonna go ahead and activate our Unidata workshop environment that we just made. So activate, except you spell it correctly. Unidata workshop. Okay, and I am in, as you still should be, the Unidata Python workshop directory. So we're going to fire up Jupyter notebooks with the command Jupyter, which is Jupyter. If you have a Mac with autocorrect turned on, life will be fun. add this word to your dictionary. Notebook. So Jupyter with a Y, notebook. And a web browser should launch with something that looks like this. If you don't have the web browser, put your red sticky up. There was a recent Safari update that broke some things on Mac. By the number of red stickies on Mac, I got it.
All right. Maybe it's only some more terminals. Copy and paste that.
But it's actually, you can use like
Sorry, whatever browser you want, it will work. And the problem actually is it's Apple's fault. They broke Jupyter. So it's no problem. Yeah. Right. So it's just complaining you can't open the tab. That's the only problem. So hit enter. Then start it. And just copy that URL and put it in the browser tab. Whatever browser you want.
Is there a way to get around that?
It's a new one. I haven't seen any good workarounds for it.
There is.
There's a
workaround that you can put in Jupyter.
Oh, okay.
So
what I do is I just leave the tab open to localhost 88 at all times. I don't even have it open in the browser anymore.
okay, so what
When I want to test something out, so we can That's been my workaround.
All right, now just type.
Okay, so folks have this up. If your Mac was one of the Macs that had a problem opening, well, what happened is Apple changed some things in Safari, and Jupyter notebooks can no longer open a tab legally. There's a workaround that you can put in the Jupyter config file. We can add that for you at lunch or something to make it a little easier. But Apple likes to break things for us.
Is that only specifically for Safari?
Should be. Yes. You can. Except Chrome just broke their plugin. So Firefox will work, but Chrome is fundamentally broken right now. Yeah. Okay, so what you see here looks sort of like a file explorer. So Finder on the Mac or Windows File Explorer. And you see all of the directories and files that we have in the workshop. In the notebooks directory, these are a lot of the lessons that we're going to go through over the next couple days. Everything that I'm going to cover is in this Jupyter Notebooks introduction and plotting and interactivity notebook. So you can open those and look in them. I'm actually going to create a new one and do a little bit of live coding, which is always awesome. Because things sometimes go wrong, but we're going to do it live so you can actually see how it works. But that content's there for you to reference. If you want to create a new notebook with me, you can click this new tab and click Python 3. What that does is open another tab in your browser, and we have an empty notebook. Back on the tab where you have this File Explorer type view, there are a lot of pretty nice things you can do from this page. So as we saw, we can create a new notebook. You can also create a text file. This has a built-in editor. So if you are using Notepad on Windows, or you don't like using VI or Emacs, or have to Google how to get out of Emacs like I do, you can just use this editor. You can also make folders, and you can even bring up a terminal in the browser if you wanted to. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our notebook here, and I'm going to sit down. Make sure you flag me down or Ryan if you have questions, but it's going to be hard to type all this standing. So up here at the top, we have the title of the notebook, which is currently untitled. You can click in there and rename the notebook. So So I'm going to call this, yep, see there, it'll add Jupyter Notebook Demo, whatever you'd like to call it. And click rename. So again, you just click in the box where it says untitled to get that dialog. Okay. There are a few fundamental parts to the notebook. The basic unit of thought in a notebook, so think of it like an expanded sentence, maybe a short paragraph, is the cell. So the cell can contain a little chunk of code that you want to run. It can contain some markdown. It can contain just plain raw text. There are all kinds of things that we can put in there. And Notebook is made of many of these cells that you can run, move around, and so on. Up here at the top, we have a drop-down box. Currently says code. That means this is a code cell. It's going to expect valid Python in there. But if I click it, I can change it to be, say, a markdown cell, which is the other type of cell that we're going to use. So you can flip back and forth. You can move cells around, up and down. You can stop the kernel. So if you get an infinite loop or something horrible happening, you click the stop button, and it kills the Python kernel for you. And there's copy and paste, all kinds of handy things. But again, like any good programmer who hates taking both hands off the keyboard and using the mouse, you can press H and you get a nice pop-up that has all of the keyboard shortcuts, so you never have to leave the keyboard if you wish. And you'll notice in here that there are two different subsets of shortcuts. Command mode, which is the first set, and then down below, edit mode. These are the two different ways that you can interact with cells. Press escape to get out of that. Right now, I am in, if I click out of the cell, I'm in command mode, so I can do things like press H and bring up that menu, and I can run all of those command mode commands. If I click in the cell to start editing it, or press return on a cell, you'll see I get a little pencil icon up there by where it says trusted. And on the left, and this outline goes from blue to green. So now I'm in edit mode for that cell. I can go ahead and type in my Python or whatever. Okay. So we can do a lot of different things in these notebooks other than valid Python code. So let's make this first cell a markdown cell. So up there in the menu, select markdown instead of code. You'll notice that when you do that, this little N in brackets on the left goes away because we're no longer expecting valid Python input. We're expecting markdown. How many people have used markdown? Okay, a few. The markdown is a really nice plain text way to format documents. So if you put a hashtag or octothorpe or pound sign or whatever you want to call it, that makes a large heading. 2 makes a smaller heading. 3 makes a smaller heading. And you can go all the way down to 5. Below 5, it just looks the same. So right now you're seeing a sort of pre-rendered version of the markdown. You notice that these are indeed getting smaller, but that's not what it's actually finally going to look like when you render it. So in a notebook, to run a cell, we can either do control return or shift return to run that cell and make a new one below it. So I'm going to press shift return, and you see I get nicely rendered headings and a new cell down here to do more things in. This is a great way to work on papers, writing them in Markdown instead of in something like Microsoft Word that saves this big blob that you can't version control, because you can version control plain text. So you can use Git like Ryan showed you and do your paper, journal submission, whatever. There are a lot of Markdown tricks and some links in the workshop content to more of them, but one of the handy ones is making a list So you can use an asterisk or a dash. So this is an unordered list. And you notice right now it's doing syntax highlighting because it still thinks that this is going to be a code cell, and is and list are Python words. So we'll change that to Markdown. This is an unordered list. So you, for example, you can have sublists. Okay, so plan to take over the world. And you can indent, so large plans, multiple lists. And you see that I get different bullet styles when I render that cell. So remember, shift return to render. So this would be a sub list. When I render that cell, now I have 3 different bullet styles. So that's relatively easy. What about ordered lists? Normally you would type, 1 dot, first thing, 2 dots, second thing. You can do that, but then if you add something in between, you have to go through and renumber everything, and nobody likes to do that. Markdown is smart enough that if you type 1 dot, so this is an ordered list, make this a Markdown cell. Let me make a few cells below here so this is back up at the top for 3 people in the back. Okay. Item 2. So that works. That creates 1 and 2. But I can also just make everything 1 dot. And the Markdown engine will go through and number it for us. And this works on sublists as well. So I can indent. This is the sub item again. More sub items. And then third item. See, everything's 1s, but when I run that cell, shift enter, now I have 1, 2, and then my sub items are A, B, and C, and go to Roman numerals and so on if you keep indenting these ordered lists. Okay. Another thing you might want to do in a notebook is say you're trying to reproduce some work from a paper and you want to put a paragraph from that paper in or a quote so you know what you were trying to accomplish there. You might want it to look like a block quote. So again, I'm going to make a Markdown cell. Just use the greater than. So this is a block quote and is profound. Unidata workshop. And if I run that cell, it thinks we want to make a list, so we have to escape that character with a slash. Since dash could be we want to make a list. No, we don't. We just want to credit that wonderful quote to Unidata workshop. Now you see we have an indented block with this little gray bar on the left, indicating this is a quote from something. Okay, another thing that we can do is we could put some code in here that is not going to run as code. We're going to render it as text. So say in your paper you wanted to have a snippet of code or something for a class. I can use triple quotes. And then I can write some code. So I'm going to write some Python here. It's okay, you don't have to type all this. This is in the notebook that you've got. And then close with triple backtick. So there's some Python that's going to count down from 10 and then say last off. If I run that cell, you see we get the kind of O'Reilly textbook looking monospaced font. that's indented. And that's nice, but it would be nicer if it had syntax highlighting because it's a little hard to read without any coloring there. So I double click in that cell to go back to editing it. And after these leading triple back quotes, you can specify a language. So it could be C, it could be Python, it could be Ruby, it could be Perl, it could be Fortran. In this case, Python. And now when I render that cell, I get text that's nicely pre-formatted. And so it's a great way to, you can export these notebooks as HTML files or PDFs or whatever. So it's a great way to share little snippets of code. You can also make a table with Markdown. It's an enhanced, they call it multi-Markdown, but the notebook will support it. So I'm going to use a pipe, which is shift/, make a date column. I'm going to make a max temp column. I'm going to make a min temp column. Then I want an underscore. So really, as you see, as I'm typing it, it looks like I'm making a text table. That's what we're doing. We're making an ASCII table. All right, let me scroll up for the folks in the back there a little bit. And so I want to say on 412, 75, min temp, 65. On 413, 78, and 67, let's say. So that's already pretty readable as plain text and something you could see coming from any kind of instrument, really. But when I do shift return and render that cell, if you say it's a markdown cell, you should, you get a really nicely formatted table that has alternating row colors. And even as you move your mouse, you can highlight rows. That's a great way to have nice tabular output in your document. You can also insert images. There's an example of that in the notebook that's in your repo. You'd like to see how to do it. But the one that I find is more useful for a lot of folks is equations. So how many people know LaTeX? Couple. Okay, we're not going to do a comprehensive LaTeX tutorial because that would be way beyond the scope of what we want to do. But I want to give you a sample of the power of tech. So in a new markdown cell, if I type $$ to say that I'm going to be talking to you in tech with an equation, F equals MA $$. Then press Shift Enter. Okay, you get a nicely formatted equation. It looks like a textbook type formatting. Okay, maybe that's not that powerful, but what is powerful is you have the capability to use Greek symbols to make fractions. So for example, /rho or omega, or I can make a fraction, say improper fraction of 4/3. And all of this syntax for LaTeX could and does fill books. If you want a way to do it, there is a way, I'm sure, in tech. Well, you render that cell. We get Greek symbols and a nicely formatted fraction. If you don't know tech and you're in the process of thinking about writing a thesis or dissertation, I highly recommend learning tech. It's wonderful for auto-numbering of figures and tables and so on. And in the notebook that you've got, you'll see I've got QG Omega typed up in there and a few other things that would be horrendous to try to use the Microsoft Word equation editor. I don't know how many people have ended up doing that for giant equations. This is a much, much easier way. Okay, so any questions on Markdown? Okay.
Do you have a recommended source for the syntax of Markdown?
The official source is John Gruber, the creator of Markdown's website, which is Daring Fireball. And he documents the basic set of Markdown. Of course, the basic set of Markdown doesn't do tables and a few other things. Since then, people have expanded on it. Now there's multi-Markdown, there's GitHub flavored Markdown, there's all these other flavors of Markdown. We have, since sending our little paper wares out, but we have this GitHub flavored Markdown pocket guide up here. Anything you can do in GitHub Markdown, you can do here. And equations, obviously, which you can't do in GitHub Markdown.
Yeah, also, as far as, you know, the markup language is LaTeX. If you have a chance to build your resume in LaTeX, you could really, you know, it'll go a long way to help you. So to actually evaluate what you're able to do.
It's true, and tech is just a plain text file that you compile, so you can version control it, you can put it in Git. That's how my entire dissertation was done. Made editing it a dream because my advisors could go and file issues on GitHub on my dissertation. It was wonderful. Okay. So the last thing we're going to do is actually, finally, for the first time today, I think, execute a Python command right before lunch. So in one of these cells, I'm going to create a variable temperature. I'm going to say it's 25. Shift return. And you notice that now this in bracket is populated with a number. So just like if you are in an interactive Python shell, this is the third input that the Python interpreter has looked at since I started this notebook. If I run it again, it's now the fourth. Just a way to keep track of what order you're doing these cells will run in. So I'm going to print that out. So print temperature. And the output conveniently shows up right below the cell that you ran. And in this case, it just shows 25. If you're used to working in Python 2.7, big difference. Print is a real, honest function now. You need to put parentheses around whatever you're passing to print. Unlike in 2.7, where it could just be print space, quotes, whatever you want to say.
That green's not showing up real well on there.
Yeah. Let's see if we can change that.
Is there a way to go back to the third? You know, that's in 4 now, 5. Go back to a third input within the notebook.
Don't know what you can roll all the variables back, because that's one of the catches that gets people with notebooks a lot. Is so now if I run down here, if I say temperature equals 27 and run that cell, then I come back up here and run this cell again that printed temperature. Now it says 27 because of the order I ran these, so 4, 6, 7. So now things are maybe not what you would expect. So yeah, you can't roll back all the variables, unfortunately. Okay. Okay, the other thing that is nice is if you get an error output, so a warning or something, those are easy to fly by on the terminal. Here, it's actually going to print it in a little red box and make sure that you see that there is a problem. So to emulate that, I am going to manually throw an error using the sys module. So what this tells Python is I want to move this up so people in the back can see it a little better. There we go. So it says using the sys module, so I'm importing the sys module. I'm going to print, I'm afraid I've made a horrible mistake to the system standard error output, so where any programs would be throwing errors. When I run that, you see that the error is shown in this nice red box to call your attention to it. So if you do something like divide by 0, take an invalid log, anything like that, it's going to show up in one of these red boxes to make sure you notice. the thing is, you can imagine if you're printing out, so I'm going to write a little loop here, for I in range 10, print 2I to the I. So here I've got the powers of 2, first 10, no problem. What if I want the first 300? That's going to go for pages and pages and pages down the screen. So similar to in the terminal where things get put through a pager if they're very long. In Python notebooks, you get a scroll bar. So I change it to 300. So now these are the first 300 powers of 2, which get exceedingly large. But it's easy to scroll past that, all that output. So if you've got some process that's, say, grabbing data from a remote server and it's going to produce lots and lots of output, that's paged nicely for you by notebooks. Okay, get a few more empty cells here so folks in the back can see. Let's go back to our friend NumPy. I'm going to import NumPy as NP. This is just a standard convention that we use. Again, programmers are lazy. We don't want to type NumPy dot array, NumPy dot something every time. This just says import NumPy, but call it NP because I only want to type 2 characters. Now, I've already used the function arange, so I know how to use arange. I remember that by typing arange of 10, I'm going to get 0 to 9 as an array output. But maybe I don't remember exactly how that works or what arguments it takes. I can type np dot arange, then a question mark. When I evaluate that cell, it'll be a little hard for people in the back to see, but the bottom half of my browser is taken over by a documentation window. So this shows the doc string. I can scroll through it. I can see, okay, so there's a start, a stop, and a step. I can go down here and read about them, see exactly how it works. And they even have an example for me down here. When I'm done with it, I can click the little X, or I can click this pop out button to pop it into a separate window. So you could drag that onto a second monitor or something if you'd like. The only other problem with Python is it can do everything for you with the right package, it seems like. So NumPy has all of these functions. Metpy's got a lot of functions, but it's hard to remember the name of what function you want. Luckily in notebooks, tab completion works just like it does in your terminal. So I can type mp.tab, and here are all of the functions that are available to me in NumPy. So there's a lot of things. Just going through here, I've found really useful things that I didn't know were there, even during these kind of demos. And so you can, for example, maybe I know it starts with H. I want to do something with a histogram. Okay, well, here's histogram D. I don't really know what histogram D is, maybe. So again, I'll use my question mark. And oh, that's an n-dimensional histogram computation. So it's really handy for discovery and not having to always be popping up another window and Googling some NumPy documentation, and you get a Stack Overflow answer that's from 5 years ago and doesn't work anymore. Yeah. We can also reorder these cells, which I alluded to earlier by showing you these buttons, but we didn't have any cells. So if I want to move cells around, I can select one and use these up and down arrows to reorder the cells. There are also ways in those help commands where you can split cells, you can merge cells, you can do all kinds of fancy formatting. Last thing before we let you go is if you explore these menus at the top, so File, Edit, View, there are all kinds of little goodies that are hidden in here. The one that you might use, at least the one that I use the most, is in the kernel menu, restart and run all, which means something horrible has happened, kill the kernel, restart it. There are no variables saved in memory, and run everything in this notebook. So clear everything, run it from the top, which it just did. I had all kinds of things pop up. But also, if you want to share your notebook with somebody, you can put it up on GitHub or on a gist or something like that. But if I want to share a notebook and I know that this person doesn't have Python installed, they don't have notebooks installed, they're not familiar with them, you can go to File, and you can download this as either the notebook, a plain Python script, in which case all your markdown is just turned into comments in Python, HTML, or even a PDF. If I do a PDF, now Jupyter Notebook demo.pdf was downloaded, and here's a PDF that has everything in the notebook nicely formatted, including my equations, the Python that I typed. And if anybody ever turned something like this into me to grade, I would be exceedingly happy. So do this and professors will thank you, or colleagues. Okay, so any questions on Python notebooks? Yes.
So I know you can take the IPython notebook and export it, but what if you have Python, just a plain Python text file?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to import it without just having everything in one cell?
Oh, not everything in one cell.
There are some programs that we use for like our documentation where you can have a long line of pound signs and it will split based on that. That's just a documentation engine. But you could probably do that and then do some kind of regular expression on that.
But nothing out of the box.
Nothing out of the box, yes.
When I download the PDF, it only shows the markdowns, does not show.
Doesn't show Python?
Yeah.
I'll have to look and see what's going on in your system.
Can you scroll down on your PDF?
Yes, all the code's there and highlighted.
Weird. I got an error when I try to go back to the PDF.
Oh.
It's back, I think.
Do you have LaTeX installed? That's probably. So if you don't have LaTeX installed, then you can download as an HTML.
Yeah, it's that part. You can do all that too.
And you get a plain HTML file that you could send to somebody and they would open in their web browser. That looks a little bit more like the notebook. You can see the cells, like you can the tech document. And you can even post this straight to your web page if you wanted or something like that. All right, no other questions? All right, if we look at our schedule here, looks like we are almost exactly on time. So we're going to go to lunch now. We'll start again at 1:20. And I believe lunch is on your own. So there will be, I'm sure, people migrating to Union or somewhere to get lunch.
Peter, we lock in the room or?
I can lock the room, yeah, you can just get stuff in here.
All right, we'll start back after lunch with just diving into a bunch of Python stuff. So.
Time we starting again?
1:20.
20.